Not much.
Yeah, right. Oh, it is 11:30. I wonder if they'll.
They just said another minute or two there.
Okay. The music keeps stopping, so I don't know when that means. Oh, I'm on now. You know you're on when the microphone comes on. That's the cue. My name is Brian Stelter. I'm a media reporter at the New York Times, covering TV and digital media. And I'm here today with Doug Herzog, the president of the Viacom Entertainment Group. That's comprised of Comedy Central, Spike, and TV Land. And I wanted to start with Comedy Central because it's always in the news thanks to Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart. We were joking before that sometimes things that are bad for democracy can be good for Comedy Central or good for the comedians at 11 and 11:30. And it always seems like they're in the news for something, doesn't it, Colbert and Stewart?
Well, Stephen more so than John. He has one of his comedic tendencies is to find a way to insert himself into the story sometimes, which is really interesting. But yeah, this is a great time for us at Comedy Central, and specifically for Stephen and John. This whole election season, what we call Our Place in Decision, is like an Olympic year for us. So we're very excited, and we're very excited how it got started.
Yeah.
So.
How many votes did Stephen Colbert end up getting in South Carolina? Because he was encouraging people to vote for Herman Cain.
I thought Herman Cain got 1%.
1%.
Right? So that's what I thought I saw. So we'll take that as a victory.
Yeah. Have you had to, we've seen a lot in the news in the last few weeks about Stephen Colbert because of his super PAC. He's been raising money. He's been raising money for months, actually, but now he's handed that super PAC over to Jon Stewart in this comedic way to, point out the flaws in the super PAC system. What situation does that put you all in at Viacom, given that you're the overlords for these two comedians?
Because of the way these super PACs are set up, we had our, we wanted to have our legal people just take a look at it and make sure everything was on the up and up, and it is. And that's the incredible thing about these super PAC. It's theirs. Right. It's not Viacom's.
Right.
So that's how the rules work, and it's now under the control of Jon Stewart,
right.
And because Stephen Colbert said so and signed that piece of paper.
And how much money do they have in the super PAC?
We don't know. But I'd spoken to Stephen early on, right when he announced it and launched it, and he gave me a figure, and it was a fair amount of money. And I'm going to guess it's about twice what it was. That it's real money. They're making spots. They're buying time. So there's some real money there. It's incredible to me that his fans, the viewers, would actually send him checks with, I can't believe, any real expectation about what he's going to do with it except try and be funny.
Right. Point being, though, that they don't have to tell you how much is in the super PAC. That's part of the joke, I suppose.
That's part of the joke, exactly.
And today Brent Brazel came out and said they're making a mockery of the system, right?
Yes, to a certain degree, which is, I think what Brent Brazel would say. But, and he was also calling them out for, they hide behind the we're comedians thing. But I think the more important thing is, what John and Stephen do is so unique and so original. And yes, they do bridge that gap clearly between, real news and comedy. Mm-hmm. But we live in a world of disruptions and mashups and things getting blended together. And I think what they're doing on their show is kind of emblematic of that, in a television way.
Right. And gives you always something to talk about, which is exciting.
Well, that's what they do. They're on every night, and they've got to have something to talk about every night. And some nights they've got to work a little harder to find that, and other nights it feels like the show might write itself.
Write itself, yeah. So let's back up a bit. What brings you to NATPE, and what do you get out of a conference like this?
Let's see. TV Land is here launching Hot in Cleveland, which is our hit sitcom. Yay! Come on, Hot in Cleveland. So that's incredibly exciting. TV Land just got into the original programming business a short time ago.
Yeah.
Hot in Cleveland went on about a year and a half ago, and we're now working with our partners at CBS, who are going to be distributing the show for us. And that's incredibly exciting that a show coming off TV Land is going to be out there in domestic syndication. So that's tremendous. That's all getting rolling as we're here. We actually, our international group at Viacom launched Comedy Central in South America this week. So that's also very exciting. And I got to say, I haven't been to NATPE in a long time, and I'm really thrilled, personally to be here to see how it's thriving and how they've kind of reinvented themselves. And it feels like this is a great place with a great vibe, and it feels like the TV business is in good shape. A lot of questions to be answered going forward, but there's a tremendous amount of great content out there, which is fueling all this great television, and I think a resurgence of television, and I think it's a good time. So I've really enjoyed being here.
And for all those platforms, we've talked before about how I mostly watch TV online or on VOD, but primarily you're still making the most money from us when we watch on TV the old-fashioned way, right?
Yes, absolutely. That is.
So that hasn't changed, in other words.
That hasn't changed. I mean, things have evolved, and we are seeing people watch in a lot of different ways, and we're making some money in different ways. But yeah, the majority of what we do is through ad sales on the television networks, and it's still a very, very strong, vibrant business.
You mentioned selling channels into other parts of the world. That's a relatively new move for Comedy Central, isn't it?
Yeah, very new, yeah. Although now I think we're up to 15 Comedy Centrals, and I believe we've only started launching them in the last 3-4 years. But the truth about the Comedy Central, it's a great brand, but the truth about the Comedy Centrals around the world is they don't have a tremendous amount to do with what we know.
Right.
Our domestic Comedy Central, John and Stephen, that stuff doesn't travel that well internationally. So it's more like a broader comedy a brand. On some of these networks, you will see a lot of more network-oriented sitcoms and that kind of thing. But a great brand, turning into a great global brand for the company. Something we didn't think possible many years ago when we first started Comedy Central, because at that time the general rule of thumb was comedy doesn't travel.
Huh. And that was even before The Daily Show and Colbert. You just thought in general comedy wouldn't work in other.
It was very undervalued from an international standpoint. Yes,
right.
Correct.
Right.
Although South Park actually, has done tremendously well over the years internationally, and so we'll see.
Yeah. I think your portfolio is fascinating because you have Comedy Central, which everybody knows and loves, and is very clearly defined, and then you have TV Land and Spike, which are trying to define themselves in particular right now. Let's talk about those two. You mentioned TV Land first with Howden Cleveland. How many years ago, I guess 3 or 4 years ago now, TV Land said we're going to produce original sitcoms and for a specific demographic, right?
Exactly. So we're trying to appeal to people truthfully over 40.
They can graduate from Comedy Central into TV Land.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, Viacom is a tremendous company in that regard. I mean, we
Yeah.
talk about it being a sort of cradle to grave, starting with Nickelodeon and even the Nick Kid stuff, and all the way up through TV Land and what have you. And yeah, so but yeah, TV Land is going for a much older audience. The 18 to 49 demo is not necessarily where we're focused, and so. What we found in our research was, and what we knew from TV Land Classic, which was the TV Land that showed classic sitcoms, is people love their sitcoms, especially older viewers. They felt a little disenfranchised by what was happening on network television with all the reality shows, and they really missed their sort of more traditional sitcoms. So we saw a real hole in the marketplace. We went for it. We got pretty successful and a little bit lucky right out of the box. And
lucky in what way?
Well, we got a lot of attention. Look, the idea of trying to go out there and tell people there's original program on TV Land was going to be a big challenge, right? This is a network of reruns. So to get people to pay attention to TV Land for the one show we were going to launch was going to be a big challenge. We had a big marketing campaign, but we did have that sort of added Betty White factor. Right. That whole Betty White thing just kind of took off at the same time we were doing our thing, and it really, really helped us, get our footing and get launched, and brought people to what's ultimately a great show. And then we've had a lot of success, after that with Retired at 35, Happily Divorced, now The X's, and we just picked up a brand new series with Cedric the Entertainer. So we're off to the races. We're off and running. This is what we think. We see a great opportunity there. We want to be to sitcoms what the USA Network is to sort of the 1-hour dramas on cable. We want to be the home for that, and it's we're.
You mean instead of TBS, which is what we think of now in that way?
Well, they're comedy, right? So they have sort of a broader notion than we do. We're very focused on half-hour situation comedies. Right now, we're doing them mostly in the sort of in-studio mode. But we see going forward, we might get to the single camera thing and so on. But it's a great place for us to be. And I think even if you look at what the networks went back to sitcoms this year and went back to the studio sitcoms. And I think that was because they saw the kind of success that TV Land was having, and they were actually missing something. So, but we feel like we got there first, and we're so far so good.
What's the formula for a perfect TV Land sitcom? Or a pitch for one?
Well, Larry Jones, who's here, and the president of TV Land would probably say it better than I will. But, it's a combination. We like to have certainly familiar faces, right? Because this is an audience that really enjoys the history and appreciates the history of situation comedies. So familiar faces, a premise that feels adult and not, not necessarily too broad and or too family oriented, although we're not opposed to families, and funny, of course, right? So they got to be funny, so what we found is there's a great treasure trove of actors and actresses who are no longer being looked at by the networks, who want the hottest, freshest 18 to 49 ready face. There's a great deal of writers and showrunners out there, because the networks moved away from this kind of programming, who are still incredibly great and talented at what they do, and looking for outlets, to do their thing. So we're able to find great talent and experienced, seasoned talent to run these shows and get them, get them going, and it's been great.
And when would you think the single camera comedy move might happen?
When the right show comes along. Again, everything is based on the idea, right? So if the idea that we fall in love with is a single camera idea and we think it's the right idea, we'll do it. We're not necessarily going with, we've got to go out and find a single camera. That sort of puts the cart before the horse.
Right.
It's like, let's find the great idea first, and whatever is the best way to tell that story, we'll do it that way.
Mm-hmm. What's the significance of Hot in Cleveland being sold into syndication now? It's the first basic cable show like that from TV Land?
For sure, from TV Land.
Yeah.
I mean, the significance is great in that, when big producers and big name writers and producers and actors come out with their pitch, their instinct is to take it to a broadcast network, right? Because they want to be on the biggest outlet. And that's where the pot of gold is, right? Because everybody wants to be Seinfeld. Everybody wants to be, Raymond or King of Queens, and have that, pot of gold in the aftermarket and syndication. With this, we now show people that you can come to TV Land and, you can make real money. Mm-hmm. By the way, we pay people real money to do their shows on TV Land, and our shows are budgeted at the same level, a lot of these networks are doing them. So we're not doing them on the cheap. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that the industry feels that there's a big back end in working with TV Land. And I think right now,
you're showing them there might be.
We're showing there is going to be. I mean, I think CBS is going to do a great job selling the show, and we believe in the show and the trajectory of the show. We think it's going to be a very happy ending.
Mm-hmm. Going from TV Land to Spike, TV Land seems further along as a brand than Spike does. Spike, for a while, tried to target younger men.
Yeah.
Now it's trying to skew a little older, and it's really in the process of a reboot, right?
It is. I mean, we there's been 3 phases of Spike. We now, there was sort of Spike 1.0, which was, when it first went on the air and had switched from being the TNN or
the National Network.
The National Network, then the National Network. But CSI was really the programming that sort of carried that first phase of Spike. A couple of originals here and there. And the second phase was dominated by the mixed martial arts UFC programming, which
is now coming off.
Now just came off the end of the year, moving over to Fox.
Right.
But in that era, we were very, very focused on young guys, and we did a very good job, quite frankly. We were so focused on young guys that we chased everybody else away.
So you could be too demographically specific.
It was too young, too guy, and we chased everybody away. And even Spike needs women, truthfully. Even ESPN has 25% women watching, 25 at any given time. So even a network for men needs women.
Right.
So we needed women, and we decided we were going to broaden it and go after slightly older guys. So now we have shifted our focus. We're very focused right now on reality programming or non-scripted programming about real guys, real storytelling, and then adjacent to that, we are not abandoning our mixed martial arts ambitions. We have invested in an outfit called Bellator that will not come over to Spike until 2013 for sort of old contractual UFC reasons. It's sort of being parked on MTV2 right now. We continue to have wrestling. We're beginning to look at boxing, which we think is a kind of a distressed brand out there and sort of nowhere to go but up with boxing. So a combination of, some sports-oriented programming, not football, basketball, baseball, or sort of the Major League bats and balls kind of stuff, as we call it, and non-scripted programming, certainly in the short run. Maybe once we sort of get where we want to go with this particular effort, maybe 36 months from now, we will get back into sort of scripted fare and that kind of thing.
There was some scripted attempts, right?
There are, and there's still some scripted. There's one show still on the network called Blue Mountain State,
right.
But we're not moving forward right now with any
Reality is more cost-effective, basically?
Of course, yeah. We could do more. We can, sort of gain ground faster, and yeah, that's sort of where we're headed right now.
We've heard in the news about Nickelodeon, also a Viacom channel, having some rating shortfalls last year. Did you feel any of that at other Viacom channels like Spike?
We had a hiccup at TV Land, for a quarter there. We were able to identify, why most of that happened, and kind of made the adjustments going forward. So no, not really.
What happened?
We had needed to refresh our schedule, and it was a particular period where we were not running originals, which are a great catalyst, in terms of our ratings. And there were a couple things, a couple adjustments we had to make, and so we did. There was a couple of hinky things where we went like, why if it all worked last week, isn't it working this week? It's still But look, there's no arguing with City Hall for the most part. You just go back to work and you make it happen. And right. TV Land is on a tremendous run right now.
So it was temporary. It's
it was like really just like a kind of a hiccup for a quarter, and not to the extent that they felt it at Nickelodeon for sure.
Right.
So, but it's all good.
And meanwhile, Comedy Central just keeps chugging along. Do you spend less time on Comedy Central because it is more established?
Yes and no. I mean, Comedy Central actually, truthfully, because of what it is, it sort of takes up more air in the room.
Yeah.
It's just, but on any given day, people say, well, how do you do it? I go, wherever the fire is, that's where I go, with bring my hose out. But no, comedy's in great shape and really, just kind of keeps on moving along. It's going to be a tremendous year. Stewart and Colbert are kind of on fire and moving into that indecision and the election season, so it should be a great year for them. South Park just celebrated its 15th anniversary, and those guys, I think, are creatively have never been better, and I'm sure you have all read and hopefully seen Book of Mormon, and these guys are just at the top of their game, and that continues to move forward in incredibly so 15 years later. Daniel Tosh, our sort of newest superstar, and he's tremendous. He comes back in January. We've got a long-term deal with him.
He's become the fourth leg of the stool.
He has become the fourth leg of the stool. Yeah. So it's. Is
there a fifth leg forming?
We think we've got a fifth leg, which is a program called Workaholics, which will be entering its third season this year, and that show has had two terrific seasons so far. Really, really resonates with our core audience, which are young guys, and we think that's actually number 5. So and then we got a show coming on at the end of this month, next week. A sketch comedy called Key and Peele, and we feel very strongly about that show as well. So we're feeling pretty good about Comedy Central and our ability to move forward and actually grow it from where it is right now.
Yeah. When shows don't work on Comedy Central, like Norm Macdonald maybe last year or something, what is the cause usually, the root cause? What makes the show not succeed?
Well, it could be any number of things. Ultimately, when we decide not to move forward with a show, at the end of the day, you just end up looking at the ratings. But there's a lot of reasons that maybe something is low rated. Maybe it's a little off brand. Maybe it's not very funny. Maybe they didn't do a great job. Maybe it's not the right personality for Comedy Central. It could be a myriad of things. I thought that Norm's hilarious. He really is, and brilliant and funny. And that show, I thought was pretty funny. Just didn't resonate, with the audience. So for whatever reason, enough of them didn't, go along on Norm's ride. Yeah. But we're big fans of Norm and hope to be doing some more stuff with him.
Given that there are so many comedians, and given that Colbert and Stewart try to create these problems or these events or these wild situations for you guys, what's the hard part about overseeing Comedy Central?
The hard part about overseeing, comedy's hard. It really is. Comedy is just, it's. I remember when I was at MTV and I came over to Comedy Central. Just take one look at me. I'm not a particularly cool guy. But I found, being cool at MTV was much easier than being funny. I could fake that. And I did for a long time. But, the funny part is, it's really, really hard. I talk offhandedly about John and Steven and Daniel Tosh and Matt and Trey. These guys, they're geniuses. They are so good at what they do. They are so smart and so funny. And the brilliance of them is they make it look so easy, and it's so hard. It really is so hard, and that's why there's only a handful of those guys. So making comedy is just really, it's just the degree of difficulty I think is so great.
But it's
really
not
do.
their crazy situations that are the hard part. When they
no, by the way,
super PAC or have a rally.
No. I mean, John and Steven are, they're really, tremendous guys. Matt and Trey are tremendous guys. Daniel, they're really, all these guys are really smart. Look, they can, there's a natural friction sometimes between, the network and what the creative people, would like to do. Certainly my, there's a great history of disagreements with Matt and Trey, but at the end of the day, we are partners. We're all trying to do the same thing. They understand there's ultimately got to be lines and some rules, and that can be that can be tense and difficult. But that's why they're great. They're so passionate about what they do. They're so certain about what they do, and they're so good at what they do. And mostly what I find myself saying to these guys is, it's not that it's not funny, because that's where it gets tricky. If you can't really ever, it's very difficult to say something, well, that's not funny. Am I really going to tell Jon Stewart it's not funny? But the truth is, when they want to do something that ends up on my desk, it's not about how funny it is. It's always funny. It's about, can we actually do this? Is it, there's usually a standards issue or a rule.
Usually because of advertising concerns, or
we certainly have advertising concerns, and then there's just general standards. It may not seem like it, but there is a line we won't cross. I know it is not always evident.
Describe it to us without offending people.
What's that?
How do you describe that line? What is that line? Is it even able to say it? It's not a straight line, and it's not a right.
For instance, I mean, truthfully, we give South Park a little more leeway than we do some of the other shows. Why? Because they've been on the
pensions that sometimes on the air. He brings that up.
Yeah, and John, by the way, John and Steven too. But they've all earned it, right? They've been on the air for a long time. They are award winning. They are critically acclaimed. The audience, so. We try and give them the benefit of the doubt, and then we have to keep the audience in mind, and advertisers, and just general, you got to be able to go to sleep comfortably at night as well. So it is a very gray area, and I got to tell you, we have some of the greatest, most understanding and smart standards and practices people, and they're great partners, and our guys, John, Steven, Tosh, they enjoy. As much, if not more, creative freedom than I would say anybody in television, and we're very proud of that.
Yeah. I want to take questions from the audience in a moment. There's a microphone.
And we did pack them in here today, Brian. I got to say, I'm going to remember each and every one of your names. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, there's two microphones over here on the side and in the middle. But I wonder about Jon Stewart in particular, because his contract is up next year. It gets written about all the time. When he renews, it always gets written about. Do you worry about a future without Jon Stewart at Comedy Central?
I do. I mean, so speaking of getting to sleep at night, right. That's what keeps me up, right? I worry constantly about a future without Jon Stewart, because that looks like a future without me to me. But my staff was laughing way too hard.
Well, let's put it this way. What can you do about it?
I can continue to make Comedy Central a great place for Jon Stewart to work, and I think it is. So, my general sense is, he's coming up in a little bit, but, I would never speak for Jon. I don't think there's anything else in this particular segment that I don't see him doing something like this necessarily for somebody else. There isn't anybody on the television landscape who would want to have him do it, but I think he loves the there isn't anything he hasn't been able to accomplish from behind the desk at world headquarters there in New York.
Right.
And so I'm hopeful that this is something he's going to want to keep on doing. I think if he were to tell me he wasn't, I would be surprised if he wanted to do it someplace else. It would be more likely that he wanted to do something else entirely.
I'd like him to run CNN.
What's that?
I'd like him to run CNN. And then also do The Daily Show at night. But he has so much to say about CNN, he might as well take it over and try.
All right. That's not so good for me, but okay.
Are you all thinking about piloting shows at midnight, or thinking about piloting shows?
We are. We think, by the way, our great hope and plan is to have John and Steven at 11 and 11:30 for a long time. Right. But we do believe there's a great opportunity at midnight. Our audience, young guys, from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. is almost, if not a little better than primetime for us, night in and night out. That's primetime for young guys. So we really feel at midnight there's a huge opportunity. We got to find the right sort of combination of talent and concept and budget to sustain something every night at midnight behind John and Stephen. But there's a giant opportunity there because they're delivering a big audience, to midnight every night. And historically we've shown reruns there.
Right. Do you see much evidence that those young people are moving away from TV, or at least multitasking? Do you worry that they're
I worry about all that. But young people love television, so they love watching it a lot of different ways, right? So they still love the big screen. Everybody, everything we know and we see and our research tells us is all viewers still love the big screen better than anything else. They are going to watch on other devices. We know that they are. It hasn't been terribly impactful to our sort of main business to date, and we're all for it. By the way, we want to be, especially with because we at Comedy Central are going after a young audience. We want to be where they are, but ultimately we've got to figure out how to get those other platforms measured in a way that sort of makes it worth our while.
Yeah.
But it's very exciting, and it's good for television.
We also see hashtags in the corner of the screen now all the time on Comedy Central. One of the first channels to do it, actually. Is that meaningful? Do you see any impact from that social TV experience?
Well,
people talking about your shows?
People want to engage with the shows. So we haven't quite figured out what it all means.
Right.
And on certain things we've done, we've seen some what looked like in the universe impressive numbers. But we haven't been able to sort of figure it. But people want to engage. They want that direct communication. We're happy to try and facilitate it. And I think it's a good thing. And once we all figure out how to really harness it, I think it could be a great thing, a tremendous thing. And it's probably, by the way, it's kind of great and tremendous right now. Now the question is, how great will it be? But we're big proponents of it. Our audience is definitely there. They're engaged with it, and we're engaged with them. And we're just trying to figure out where it all takes us together, clearly.
You were at CES, by the way, earlier in the month. Is there anything that stood out to you there as notable or new or interesting?
It didn't. I'd never been before. I like this better, by the way. This is more fun.
Better location.
Better location. It wasn't a big year for as we all know, for like the great new product that's going to change our lives.
Right.
I did see that OLED screen, which I'm not a technophile, but it's the next generation TV screen, which is so incredible. It's like watching real life. That's like
they're in your living room, basically.
Well, it will be. I guess they had up till now they'd only made like 11-inch, and now they're going to do a 55-inch screen, which is going to be a fortune at least to start with. But it's a stunning picture. It really takes it, if you can believe. I'm a huge fan of HD, as I'm sure we all are. But it really takes it to another level. And so that was something. And then there was a lot of sort of. Your handheld, your phone, you'll be able to, set the temperature in your house and do the laundry and run the dishwasher and heat your meal and TiVo, Modern Family and turn the alarm on and tell your wife you're going to be late. And
right.
I was like, okay, sort of like, House of the Future or something.
Right.
I'm not sure. Like I said, if I ever hook anything up to anything that says Maytag, just shoot me. So I'm not. I don't like that. I don't know. We'll see where all that goes. But there was a lot of that stuff.
Right.
I did see on a small Nintendo screen a little. I forget what their little.
A DS or something.
They're those little handheld Game Boy. Thank you. Whatever the latest iteration of the Game Boy is, they have a 3D. Video that you don't use glasses. It's it's and it's a little screen, but you could sort of see like that looked like 3D to me. It had some real dimension and I
more
could
than
see,
a 3D TV so far.
I'm not a big believer in the glasses,
Right.
but that's just me.
Right.
But but that was without glasses, and I guess as that evolves, that could be kind of interesting. Like that looked great.
Right.
Only a little tiny screen though.
We have a shy audience with no questions. So what do you want them to?
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
We do. Oh, there's a microphone. Maybe I wasn't clear. I was hoping people would line up at the mic. I thought people were being too shy. But we have a couple minutes. Let's hear these two questions.
Okay, so I'm totally not shy. To address you were talking about Spike earlier and talking about that soft demographic that you're just missing right now. In the 36 months between now and when you, I guess, take on something scripted. Now, what if in that period you found something that hit that demographic perfectly, that was scripted, that was, cross content, that was...
You mean like your show?
Like mine, exactly. Exactly.
Like the Brilliant Show, you've got
Brilliant
stuff in your thing there.
I sure did. It's right in there.
Yeah. We're going to have to resist that temptation. That happens. I mean, we really are. I think one of the things we're really trying to do right now is, I believe in focus and really chasing it, and that's what we're going to do for the next 36 months. I think it would have to be the kind of sort of opportunity that even on paper, we just couldn't afford to turn down because, concept, maybe there's a star attached, maybe there's a price, but I don't see us developing anything in the immediate future. It's going to be, like I said, maybe 2-3 years down the line before we really get back that in earnest.
Okay, thank you very much. I hate you.
I'm sure the script is great.
It is. I'm still going to hound you later.
All right.
All right, I have like a 3-part question, so hopefully it
right.
will be livable. First thing is I'd like to hear more about the demographic for TV Land, because I love TV Land, and I'm interested to know if I'm in it. That would be kind of interesting. And secondly, when you have it seems like it's something of a mixed demographic, whereas Spike and Comedy Central, this is just what I perceive to be, that you have a clearer idea, it's young guys or whatever. How do you go about testing that kind of market or surveying that kind of market when it's so mixed? And the third...
Spike, you mean?
No, TV Land.
Oh, TV Land.
And thirdly, it seems like you're focused on sitcoms for that, but would you consider reality TV for that or other types of formats, or is that pretty much the focus of what you found for that demographic?
We actually started with reality TV on TV Land. I'm still not, it was like, duh, our audience likes comedies, but we took us a minute to land on that. So we just sort of put the reality aside, because at the end of the day, I think that's what they're trying to get away from at the networks, and get back to what they want, which are these half-hour sitcoms. Larry Jones, who is Larry, since we're an intimate group here, we're just amongst friends. Larry, how would you describe the TV Land demographic and answer her question?
40-something. There we go.
You're our people.
We all fit into at least one of your demographics, which is lovely.
Yeah,
one of your
there you
3
go.
channels. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I'll write you all personal thank you notes. Thank you for coming.
Oh, wait, we're not supposed to walk off the stage, right?